I'd now like to bring Stuart Sherman to the stage. Stuart is one of our friends from Canada who's started a company over here, or an offshoot of his company from Toronto, I believe, Stuart. Here in Leeds, IMC, Artificial Intelligence. So welcome, Stuart, and over to you.
Thank you. For starts, it's wonderful to be speaking once again in the Church of Technology. It's quite an amazing thing. When I explain it to people, I travel and speak around the world, and I explain this venue, and people are literally amazed. I really would like to thank all of the people involved in FinTech North for doing this. I guess we started speaking with them quite a while ago, and our infrastructure in Leeds has grown. We're doing all sorts of work with clients that are based in Leeds, although we are a Toronto-based Canadian corporation. This talk specifically is around the idea of hidden data. And I think that when we start thinking about FinTech, one of the things that it really does is it exploits hidden data, and data that the large financial institutions just haven't been dealing with. And so when we think about it, I describe this as the elephant in the room, where we're doing enormous amounts of number crunching and looking at things in new ways and everything else. But innovation, by definition, is not what everybody else is doing. And crunching data better using intuitive techniques and things like that isn't necessarily where it stops. And so to talk about that a little bit, I would like to just take you through a little bit of an exercise about two people who are demographically identical. They were both born in 1948, actually the fall of '48, and they were 3 weeks apart in age. They both were born in the UK. They live in London. Interestingly, they both are extraordinarily high net worth. They're the one percenters, over 100 million in net worth per piece. That should actually be a pound sign. They're both male. They've both been married twice. They're both Anglican, and they both love dogs. So I think if you looked at this from a traditional data standpoint, whether you're a marketer or a banker, you would probably say that these people are virtually the same, and they would fit in the same bucket. They live in the same area, the same income. All of these factors are the same, except one of them is Prince Charles. The other one is Ozzy Osbourne. Now, obviously, they're dramatically different. And when you think about it, the definition of fun for Prince Charles is dramatically different than Ozzy Osbourne's idea of fun. So when we start thinking about crunching big data, one of the things that's happening, and when I talk about the innovations of AI, I'm talking about using AI to do things that we don't do with it right now. And what we don't do with it right now is we're not really looking for latent variables. We're looking for variables that are present and visible. So we're crunching data like next best offer is based on a large database of people that you analyze and figure out what they're most likely to buy because you've got a cohort of people who look like them. They were both males born in 1948 who are wealthy. The concept of latent is that the data is present but not visible. And so I would consider hidden data latent data. It's the elephant in the forest. And so to explain this a little bit, I'll tell you the story of the happy turkey, and I'll try to tell it quickly. Basically, it starts with the little baby turkey chick, and it meets the farmer for the first time, and it might be a little bit nervous, but the farmer feeds it and takes care of it, and the turkey grows, and as the turkey grows, its love for the farmer grows. And it receives positive feedback from the farmer, so it believes the farmer loves it back. And that goes really well until about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And it doesn't end up so good for the turkey. And so when we start looking at this, we start kind of looking at what's happening here. And what's happening is that the turkey's forecasting. And the forecasting is happening because it's based on observed actions. So the turkey sees the love growing, and so if you ask the turkey what the future is, it sees more love in its future. And if you ask the farmer what the story is, he sees more money in his future. So really what happened is the turkey wasn't looking at the motivations of the farmer. He was just looking at the actions. So we want to get underneath why these actions happened. And this is something that AI can help us do. So unfortunately, we learned in psychology class that the best predictor of future actions is past actions. And it's not entirely true. So to illustrate this a little bit, I would tell you this story. It's an old Chinese parable about the blind men and the elephant. And essentially what happens is you take 3 blind men, and they're walked over to the elephant, and they're asked to examine and explain what an elephant is. And the problem is that they can't see the elephant, so they just grab a piece of it. So one thinks it's a tree, another one grabs the trunk and thinks they're like snakes. A tusk might be a unicorn. They don't really understand what they're seeing. So when you talk about now building a predictive model of what elephants are like, it's very difficult because there's just so much latent data. It's present, but it's unknown. So if you look at this, and just using framing to try to get everybody on the same thought, it's really, if you thought about all of these processes, let's look at it and say, what does a salesman do? Because typically what's happening now is that we're analyzing data and we're predicting what people would do, but we're not looking at their motivations. And yet what salesmen do is they analyze data and they try to get to people's motivations. So a salesman would see a young couple with a baby coming in to see a car, and he would suggest that safety is the big feature for them, because he would understand their motivations intuitively. And when the young guy comes in, he explains about the spoiler, and he tells them how fast the car is. Now, it can be the exact same car. It's just a question of what you emphasize and what you don't. And that's driven by motivations. Why is this person motivated, or what could motivate them to purchase? So what we believe is that AI in the future can actually understand people, as opposed to understanding people's data. And I think that that really truly should be the future of things. So if we want to talk about innovation in AI, there's too much. Like, our brains would explode. So if we talk about it in the right context, my feeling is that the next level of innovation in AI will be the AI that helps understand humans. Because right now we're understanding humans by looking at their footprints in the snow and trying to guess how tall we are and what we're like. So if we were going to talk about AI in general, and I'd like to kind of reframe it, and this is just kind of fun. You may have seen this before. I use this slide a lot. Just for fun, everybody, try a little experiment with me. Instead of reading the word blue, tell me the color of the word. So it's red, green, I guess you can call that yellow if you like. It's supposed to be orange. So try reading the paragraph below. Read it out loud, don't be shy. You can do it. Or maybe you can't. It's hard, isn't it? Are you starting to laugh? You find yourself laughing? So laughter is what happens when your brain gets confused. And that's why punchlines don't generally follow the joke. They actually are some sort of version of the joke. So what's actually happening in our brains when this is occurring? So what happens is that there's actually 2 areas of our brains. I love the expression neural parliament. You don't actually have one device in your head. You actually have something like parliament. What's happening is there's 2 parts of your brain. There's the part that actually processes visual words, your reading part. And then you've got part that does color recognition. And what's happening, and you noticed when you were reading it, you were doing it very robotically. The reason is that you're actually, these 2 sides are fighting, and then you're coming to a conclusion, and then your mouth is producing that conclusion. So this is this battle that's going on between color recognition and word recognition. If you think about it, what's happening is that the data's coming into your brain, and it's getting processed by all of your brain. With AI, what we're able to do is we're able to filter it. So now we could say, let's just process color. And if all we do is process color, and we don't train the AI how to read at all, it will be able to process color phenomenally accurately and without any distraction. And that's essentially what AI is capable of allowing us to do. So when you start thinking about applications for AI and anything you're working on, whether it's a startup or you work for a large bank or anything like that, one of the ways of looking at it is, what do we have to examine without distraction? And that's a very powerful thing to consider. So essentially, AI is really just a narrow slice of a human's ability. And it doesn't get tired, and it just does that with no distraction at all. So when we start talking about that, it can help us now notice the data. It becomes visible to us. So when we start talking about marketing and technology and understanding and predicting humans, instead of looking at their actions, we can actually now map it back to their behavior, what motivated those actions. And as you're able to understand the motivations, you can change behaviors. So we're working with organizations like the NHS here and some banks here in trying to understand the motivations, why people make decisions. And as you can understand why they make them, you can now start testing things more appropriately. So instead of A/B testing things like the 2 favorite options, you can now start A/B testing on things like, is this person an extrovert or an introvert? Or is this person the kind of person who has respect for our product? Or is this person the kind of person who just views our product as something quite standard? I think that when you start looking at it, what you really see is that companies in general, organizations, have truckloads of big data. And they have very small samples of consumer insights, which are really the motivations that drive humans. And what we're talking about is an AI that we've created called behavioral AI. And the idea of this is to actually be able to translate one into the other. And it's based on a concept called neurolinguistic pattern matching. Now, what that is, and I'm sure everybody here has had a mother, at least once. And you've probably been in this situation where you've been asked to take out the rubbish, and you answered, "I guess so," and then you wonder why she's mad at you. Anybody not had that happen? So the "I guess so" is the key. "I guess so" doesn't mean, yes, I'd love to. It actually means, I don't really want to, but I'll do it for you. And so we actually read a lot into what people say. So what we've done is we've developed AI that does this. It was actually, we being a Watson partner and literally Watson's first partner in Canada, we played around with some Watson tools that did a little bit of this and realized they weren't good enough and built our own. But basically what we're able to do is take 300 to 500 words spoken by an individual and turn that into numerical scores that relate to personality. Now you can take that and use it alongside of big data. And when you can actually combine the two, you start to allow computers to understand humanity, which means you can understand humanity at scale. Now, people say, can you really do that? Well, I bet you everybody knows who this guy is who said this. Does anybody not remember this guy? So you know his personality. I hope that none of you have had the displeasure of shaking hands with him. But you do have a predictive model of his behavior. So I could choose any topic or anything, and you would probably be able to guess how he would react. And that's because you've read his tweets or you've seen him speak or anything like that. So humans are able to do this. So why can't machines? And the answer is we can. So how do you use it? Well, if you take this and you crunch words that people use, crunch sentences and typing and whatever, natural language, you can now start to bucket people for personality. So instead of the traditional approach where both Ozzy Osbourne and Prince Charles seem identical from a geodemographic, socioeconomic viewpoint, you can start to understand that they're dramatically different. And as you can understand their differences, your predictive models become a lot stronger. And what that means for FinTech, quite truly, is that you're able to service people better. Now, on a no-names basis, we had this conversation with a very large multinational insurance company, and they said, this is great, but we have a digital-first strategy. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all of our customers digital first so that we're dealing with them with apps and stuff, and then we'll come back and do this. Well, I hope you realize how ridiculous that sounded. They didn't. But once you've got everybody digital and you're not really communicating with them anymore, where are you going to get that data? And then you're building one interface to satisfy everybody. And yet, there are different personalities, and we see things differently, and we are unique like everyone else. And therefore, as a result, we actually need to be communicated with differently. We need the salesman. And so as we build technology, we're depersonalizing processes. There's discussion about financial advisors and how if you have a lower net worth, a financial advisor may not want to deal with you. But if you're going to now be served by a robo-advisor, the robo-advisor should understand if you're risk adverse or not. They should understand the things about you that a human does. And to the extent that you can do that, do you really need a human financial advisor? And that's really the challenge for all of you FinTech entrepreneurs to think about, as well as the people who work in the large financial institutions. Because if we're going to change systems, we must make sure that they match with human expectations. So I think that the future is you say something, and the computer understands you, and understands who you are, and knows how to talk to you. Thank you very much. I welcome conversation and everything else, so please look me up on LinkedIn. Feel free. I always get a couple of requests from people saying, if you don't mind, I'd really like to. I don't mind. Please reach out to me. We feel very much committed to Leeds and Yorkshire as a whole, and anything I can do to help grow the startup community here and the overall economy here would be truly a pleasure. Thank you.